Hello, my name is Jake Thelen, and I'm going to be doing the presentation for the interview that we did for the HR management specialist. So without further ado, let's get going. If I get this going. All right, there we go. Who did I meet with? I met with Dawn Tanner, Director of Talent Management at Mid-Michigan College. This was a pretty easy one for me because I work at Mid, and she helped me through my hiring process. So it was just kind of a very easy way to connect with somebody that's been doing this for a very long time. She has over 20 years of experience working in payroll, working with benefits, and just working generically in the human resource field. So I thought that she'd be not only fitting but a very good person for me to connect with. We discussed some challenges in the human resource field. Some of them are learning new procedures and keeping up with the changing landscape and rules. Those two kind of, in my mind, work hand in hand because as the landscape continues to change and rules begin to change, obviously you're going to implement new procedures. And I think that begins to shift generationally speaking. And so as one generation begins to retire and exit the job market, the generation that succeeds them tend to have different core values. And based on those core values is when you start to see the societal landscape start to shift, and then rules start to change, and then you start to implement new procedures. And so when those things are made, communicating those updates are very important. Clear communication and understanding why things are being done it is very important. So when rules come about, making sure that you understand how to implement those new procedures, adhere to those new rules, and communicate those updates, and make sure that you pass everything down the chain and that everybody has a clear understanding of what's going on. Some issues with management, I think, are understanding realistic expectation for new hires. When you miss out on somebody that had been working for you for 10, 15, 20 years, obviously they know that job like the back of their hand. It's unrealistic to expect somebody to come in and fill in their spot, almost as if they never left. It's just unrealistic. So understanding expectations for new hires, understanding that it might take a little bit for them to get comfortable, get their feet wet, get a good understanding of the job, and get comfortable in their position. And going with that is that clear communication, making sure that they understand their policies for the company, the business, the institution that they work for, understanding the processes and the way that some things work, understanding that there's clear communication when changes are made. So when managerial changes, director level changes, even shift to shift changes, making sure that there's clear communication and everybody's on the same page there. And I think it's very important that you provide rationale. It's sometimes just understanding that you got from A to B isn't good enough. Sometimes you need to understand how you got from A to B. It's while it's good to know that you got from A to B, it's good to know why you got there, how you got there. And that way there's some sustenance, there's some context. Because when things happen without context, sometimes there can be a disconnect, and making sure that you can be as connected as possible and providing rationale, I think, is very important. Leadership development was another thing that we touched on, preparing employees for their next roles within business. That could be some things. I think mentoring and job shadowing kind of go hand in hand, gaining experience from other people that have, they have a lot of experience in the field. Seminars, conferences, leadership training. Like I said, I work for Mid, I work in the athletics office. So for me, athletic oriented examples are very beneficial. So for example, baseball has this thing called the ABCA, which stands for the American Baseball Coaches Association. And they do these seminars, conferences where they'll get together. They will all meet in one centralized location, and they will meet with people that might have formerly been professional baseball players or professional coaches, high-level coaches. And that way they will talk about some of the practice drills, some of their expectations they have for some of the players. So they can kind of cherry pick and pull different things to implement themselves and see what's successful and what's not. Recruiting talent, the job market is very competitive, obviously. As college has become almost an expectation out of high school, the job market is very competitive. You have a lot of people with very similar resumes. So that makes the job market very competitive. Hiring managers are implemented. They develop clear standards, making sure that you have the right things listed in the job description, making sure that you understand what you're hiring, what the expectations are for that hire, stuff like that. And that they also provide accurate details for the applicants. So that way you don't post a misleading job and you have an accurate applicant pool to work with. It also helps define the hiring process, making sure that all the boxes are checked, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and make sure that everything's done correctly. Because if you do it once and you do it correctly, you should only have to do it once. So some changes in the future. I think that was pretty self-explanatory. Is that technology is going to be a huge change in the future. It's going to digitize a lot of processes and condense a lot of paperwork and forms and stuff like that, um, which can be good and bad. You get rid of a lot of the lunky um, filing cabinets and get rid of a bunch of the paperwork in that sense. But then you're also a little bit more apt to leave yourself susceptible to vulnerability, and people can hack into stuff like that. Sometimes technology just is not as secure. So a little bit of trade-off there. Working in the future of the HR department, like I said, there's a job market shift as one generation leaves, another one enters. And I think that we're going to see a lot more remote work. You're going to see a lot more locational flexibility. Processes and procedures are going to become much more digitized as the baby boomers begin to leave the market for retirement. You're going to see a lot more of the younger generation start to implement a lot more of these digital processes, remote learning stuff like, or remote work, excuse me, a lot more often. So I think that that's kind of based on my conversation with Dawn is kind of the direction that human resources are going to have to deal with, is how to work with somebody working remotely, how to work with somebody that's working on a different location than you, how these processes are going to be digitized. Things I hadn't considered is how in depth the hiring managers go. I didn't understand the depth and the complexity and how much they actually had their hands in the hiring process. I knew that you could outsource and have outside firms help with the hiring process, but I didn't understand the depth that they go into and how important communication was. As a coach myself, I understand communication is important, but I didn't understand the varying levels of communication, how important it really is, how easily things can get lost in translation, how easy it is when everybody's on the same page and moving in the same direction. Some important things that I thought existed for HR is updating. So making sure that you are doing what you need to do to remain competitive against your other companies, making sure that your benefit packages are competitive. Your extracurriculars you're offering are competitive. Your wages are competitive. As you begin to get less and less competitive in those fronts, you're going to start to lose good talent. And as you lose good talent, you're going to start to fail. And then remaining informed on updated policies, making sure that you're adhering to all, state level, national level adherences and policies and regulations and whatnot. Professional development I find very important, as I touched on. Making sure that you're doing all you can do to get things from different perspectives, begin to understand things from a different angle, become a very diversified mind. I think that the more diversified you can be, the better, because you can understand things from different perspectives, and it just makes you a more well-rounded person. And communication obviously is very important, making sure everybody's on the same page, because if everybody's on the same page, the only direction to move is forward. And so that is a presentation. I appreciate you taking your time to watch and listen in, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's. Thank you.